out. I was hoping that part of the talk could be more, I'm hoping that I can do some Q&A because I could talk forever. So what I'll do is I'll kind of give a little intro so that everyone's sort of on the same page where I was coming from and all that. And then if there's specific questions, like we were already talking paint colors or whatever it is that interests you, and then that way we can kind of just take the talk in that direction. So I'll start by introducing myself. You all know me. My name is Jennifer Pereira. I'm an artist. I studied several years ago, then kind of dabbled in just being a maker and doing other stuff because it's quite difficult to work without a studio. So that was always kind of a goal, and it was sort of something that I flip-flopped back and forth from with different levels of success. So I've made a commitment more recently, now that I'm a homeowner, to sort of convert our bunker, which is a really cool historical bunker. It's over 100 years old, and it was at the point in its life where we either had to decide if we were taking it down or restoring it. So considering the cost to take down a caps bunker, which walls are about like that thick, cement, we realized, no, it's actually going to be cheaper for us just to fix it up, and we're quite capable in that sense, so that's the direction we went. And this last year we just installed a wood stove with pipes that go right through the building, so it should be moving from a 3-season studio to a year-round studio. So the goal is to keep going with my art, this kind of art, and to have a place to store it, and then to travel with it and ship it and exhibit and kind of go in that direction. So it's a very exciting time for me. At this time last year, I did my first solo show, which some of you guys were at, and that was in the bunker, which was really cool, but it's nice to collaborate with other venues and community organizations and really bring the art to people as much as possible. So I do still have my bunker studio, but this year we decided to do the show here. And the big thanks to that is to Amber and Nessie, who started working here, and all the other people who are affiliated with the space, and thank you for coming today. It means a lot. So I guess I should do a couple other thank yous real quick. My wife, so Maida's been a huge support, and obviously there's so much more than making art that goes into being an artist, and unfortunately a lot of artists don't wear those hats, and it just becomes a huge barrier to them. So Maida's kind of been able to, compensate for some of my shortcomings. Recently she got a website going for me. She does all of my video work and social media and all the stuff that I just can't stand. So unfortunately, if you don't exist online, you don't exist, and that sucks, but it's just a reality of artists, particularly working in a northern, I don't want to call it a remote community, but it's a small community. We'll go with that. So when I started making this style of art, which is actually what I studied in the school, so I went to Queens and I studied fine arts, so they do oil painting and printmaking and all that stuff. I still don't have a printmaking studio, so don't expect to see any of that from me, but I can definitely do the oil painting. And I kind of thought, okay, this is what I want to do, but I also have to support myself. So I went, I don't want to say commercial, but a little bit commercial. I started with a lot of wildlife and a little bit of landscape. I felt like landscape's been done a lot, so I didn't really want to go that route. But it is my jam, and back when I was in university, I did submit a large oil painting of polar bears. It was called On the Brink, and it won Best in Show at the Robert McLaughlin Gallery, and it was really awesome. And I wish I kind of kept with it from then, but from that time till now, which I have to check my CV when I graduated because it was a long time ago, but from then till now, I've lived a lot. So I've traveled, I've had a lot of experiences, and I've just seen a lot and matured a lot as an individual, and I think a lot of that informs my art. And I feel like as much as I wish I kept the momentum right out of school, I wouldn't have been the person I am now, you know? So I did pursue teaching. I moved to different communities. We went really far north to remote communities. I experienced a lot of Ontario that people who are in large urban centers don't know is there and don't really understand. So things like gas tax and stuff drive me bonkers because I'm like, that's just a part of our reality. And it's not that we're being greedy or irresponsible. I think we actually live a very sustainable, modest life where we are, but we do need to buy gas. And for me to show my stuff, even here, I had to drive here. You know, if I go to Sudbury, I have to drive there. Like, that's just the reality of being in the north. And it's allowed me to see different, like moving and being in different communities, I've seen the way people live in the north and the way that we can choose to live. And I think it's a really beautiful thing. And I want to, in my work, recognize that these are places and lifestyles that still exist and are worth preserving and recognizing and elevating and celebrating. So a lot of my wildlife are scenes that we've happened across. Tomogamy Nomad, which is hanging here right now, that's a photograph from when we lived on Bear Island, and we're just driving, and that's the little fox, and that's where he lives, and it's wonderful that he has a place like that to live. When I go south and I see those little subsections of land, and I think, how the heck is a fox supposed to travel through 6 subdivisions to get to this marsh and then travel back across the highway to get, like, it's so unfair, but it's just our reality, and it's just not enough. So even things like I did a short pollinator series, and even stuff like bumblebees have gotten really popular as of late, but it's because of the dire situation that they're in. And, you know, something like milkweed I think I have one of the monarchs downstairs, you know, that's something like, when I see them spray along the railway tracks, I'm like, that's one of the few places that we still have milkweed growing, and they spray it, and I get it, but at the same time, like, it's just, it's something that I want to talk about because I think it's worth talking about. And it's funny, the folks who like that piece with the monarch tend to be, and I'm gonna, sorry if I offend anyone, older women. And when I hear stories of their experiences, what the monarch meant to them, and how they remember it from their childhood, and how much it's changed, and whether that brings sad or happy memories or conflicted memories, I'm just like, you know what, it triggers something within us, and you know what, it's special to us. So that's what I try to do with all my pieces. They all have stories, and they're all special to people, but from their perspective, so they're going to be different for each individual. But I was dying to do figure work. So figure work I did back in university, and then probably about 3 years ago, I got together with a few artist friends who are from my area, so in Latchford and New Liskeard and Cobalt. And so Andrea Burton and Sabrina Summersall will come to my house, and every week we would do figure drawing. And the goal for me was to get to the point where I could begin producing this body of work. So I'm really proud. This has been like 3 years in the making, and now they're on canvases. So it's a hard thing to do because it's not as, I don't want to say not as commercial, but it was really hard for me to show this show because a lot of places didn't want to show it. Sorry. But I really wanted to do it. So studying like in a classical, like, you know, the whole art world thing, obviously a lot of art history was a part of that. And like, you can't get away from the nude. Like, that's just a staple. Like, if you don't study the nude, I'm trying to see so I can see everyone's faces as I keep moving. But there's a reason for that, and there's a beauty in the human form, and like you can't go to any gallery ever, anywhere, and not see the nude. Like, I just think it's, oh, I'm okay, thank you. Oh, yeah, I'm okay. I'm not going to do it again, I promise. Okay. But to me, I'm like, no, I have to have a go at it. Just like everyone tells me I'm from Cobalt and I have to do a head frame, and I will. I just haven't got there yet. But it's like, it's something that was important to me, and I'm like, if I can put an animal in nature and everyone praise me for it, then I can do it with a human. And I really wanted to do that, and the way I decided to go about that was with the Dryad series. So again, coming from like art history, like I study, you know, like I just like the gods and just these awesome stories, and they're just like, you know, like the birth of Venus, where she's like coming out of a shell, and I'm just like, ah, I love it. Or like the Primavera, like, you know, those really like fantastical scenes where there's just these figures with like beautiful drapery, and then there's like nude cherubs, and like, it's just like so cool, and I'm like, I want to do that. So I also just wanted to be like authentic with what my mission is, and a lot of my mission producing wildlife and like just these special places that, you know, I've come across on kayaks or on hikes or wherever. I thought, well, you know, the personification, that mother nature, the like, you know, the trees as beings, like that's what I'm gonna go with. So I found the term Dryad, and it's like kind of like a demigod, where it's like a shape-shifting being. So it's the actual tree, and originally it was the oak trees, and then it's sort of the term just branched into like all trees. But it's the tree that can then shape-shift into a young woman, right? And I just thought, oh, I love that. So they're dryads, so they're actually tree spirits, and they're all kind of, each individual piece sort of takes a different look at it. So it can stand alone as its own, or they can sort of hang as a series and tell a bigger story. So some of them, like this one here, was just, there's a few of them that I just really wanted to do the reclining nude and like kind of like nail it in my own way. Like, you know, if there's an art history book about me like in the future and they show my reclining nude, like that's what I want them to look, right? So these were both in the same stream. So this one's Riverbed, and this one, like what really came through was that like the palette with the stones and the figure, and you don't even see the trees, but it's the shadow. So it's the light effects that you're getting from the overarching branches that are like dappled on the figure, and then they kind of produce like this almost like rhythm, like these diagonal like stripes through the piece, and it's just a super like daydreamy like kind of figure, and it's just that carefree. So she's just like super carefree, you know. It's like, you know, when you like lay in a field and you're just like, I don't know if you've ever done that, right? Like when the wind's going and you're just like, I'm just listening and like feeling the breeze and just being in the moment. That's that one. That's really that one. But again, it's kind of interesting to have the reclining nude like oriented that way, right? Like it's extreme foreshortening, and it really plays on form and the light and darks and stuff like that. So that's probably like my favorite piece, and I was actually really intimidated to do that piece because I knew I had to do it right. So that one was really fun. And then, so that was the third piece. And then this is the second to last piece, and that one's Stream of Life. And originally I had a different figure. Sorry, it's not ideally situated for everyone to see, but you know the one I'm talking about. It's also in the little pamphlet if you have to look at it. And originally I had a different figure, and I opted for that figure, so I just subbed it out. It was a figure that I had drawn, like I had sketched before. So it was one of my reference figures that I had sketched a couple times, and I just was really drawn to it. I thought it was like just super sexy, right? So it's like that seductiveness. So it's the reclining nude, but it's you know, she's, that one really embodies to me like the femme fatale and this like luring, you know, creature, right? So the forest, you have to imagine when people came here and they decided to log or mine, like how messed up were you? But they were blinded by just this, I don't want to say greed, that's just the way the world is. Like it started way back with rubber, right? Like the, you know, the Industrial Revolution, all that stuff started with just the mass, you know, collection of resources, right? And it's very appetizing to someone who's going to make a living on it. They're going to build their communities on it. They're going to just like thrive as a species, but at what cost? So it's like, if you are tempted and drawn in and then you go and you clear cut all these forests, it's like, now what? So it's this, it's, you know, yes, you can lust for it, but like, you have to be careful, because if you take too much, it's not there anymore, right? And that's that, you know, that femme fatale. So that was kind of a really like fun, like playful way of me kind of tackling that. So I'm really happy with that, and I would like to do more in that palette, because I just think the body, like the tones, just go really nice together. Anyways, yeah. This one here, again, it's not turned towards you guys. Actually, can I pick it up or is it attached? Oh gosh, I have it like really attached on there. Just so it doesn't fall over the balcony. So that one's called Mother of Rain, and that's the most recent work. And the idea was, if I was only going to show these guys, I wanted to have enough of the like overlap to really make the series stand alone. So that one pulls on the same palette. Here, I'll do this. There's a draw for this, by the way, this little print. So in this one, she was more personifying Mother Nature herself, and we had these really cool photos from when it was raining. This is on Sass Lake, so it's actually where we get our water from in Cobalt. Like it's, you know, you're not supposed to have any recreation, like no boats there, nothing like that. And just the idea of like water being, you know, the ultimate like cleanser, the whole water cycle, women as water bearers, like that whole, there's so many connections, like water, and like we talk about like trees and the roots and like the soil and all that stuff, but water too, right? And there's been water walks and a lot of talk about, you know, our water and how we need to protect it and be advocates for it. And that piece kind of tackles that a bit. But the figure in that one, she's very confrontational. And there's only, you should just be able to turn it off. Oh, that one, okay. Most of them, they're not looking at you, but in this piece and in the Cedar Sisters, the Dryads are actually like engaging the viewer. And in this one, it's sort of like, she still has that youthful young body, but the way her expression is, it's very like intense. And to me, a young woman would not have that confidence, right? So to me, that's, you know, the wisdom of years and just the power that Mother Nature holds. So it's, you can have just a soft rain that, you know, spreads the nutrients and like feeds all the plants and stuff like that. Or you can have like immense flooding or something. Like, it's just the power of nature and the power of water. And I thought in this one, like, she's not, it's not, you know, the, like, it's not the, you know, oh, don't look at me, like, you know, her eyes are making contact and she's just like staring you down. And it's like, I made it where it's almost like she's saying something, but you don't know what she's saying. So it's like, depending on what you're doing and who you are and how you're choosing to live your life, she could be saying something very different to you, right? Or what experience you're having at the moment. So this is almost one that you would almost go to and like have a conversation with the piece, right? And depending on where you are, that conversation is going to look very different. And so yeah, I was kind of like, I wasn't going that direction, and then I was like, no, I'm going to do that, and you know, we're gonna have that uncomfortable moment, right? And then the other piece that has that you make eye contact with is the Cedar Sisters. So this was one of the like first pieces to be done because I did several at the same time. And the Cedar Sisters, that's like the literal tree hugger, right? And I remember learning about like where the term came from, because I don't know, I guess when I grew up, it was a little bit like, I don't want to say derogatory, but it was like, you know, these people blocking roads or whatever it was that was happening. But the term originated in a place in India, and it was contractors had come and they were going to take the forests out of these communities, and the community, it was like without the forest there was no community. So I think it was mostly just the women. They went and they hugged the trees, and it's actually like in the brochure, it says like to save the forest, but actually they just plowed right through them, right? Like it was totally disgusting, but that was the beginning of that movement. And these people in this village, like they knew without the forest there was no community. So to them it was their lives either way. And it was literally hugging the trees, and I can't remember the name, but it means embrace in the dialect of that community. And the irony of this, and you guys will think I'm making this up, but after we took these photos, someone did harvest this tree. So the tree isn't there anymore. But the patch is still there. So the way cedar grows, it grows in like there's cedar patches. And I mean, you know, there's sustainable harvesting. Like it was not clear cut, but this exact tree was harvested. So it's just kind of a crazy thing, because here it is preserved, right? So again, I'm not sure, like to me, these are the trees, like the dryads are the trees, and the embrace is sort of like a part of that transitional moment where it's like, they're either turning into or like, you know, becoming the dryad, right? And they're grounded, like they're planted on the ground, they're engaging with the viewer, but there's this protection that's happening of the tree itself. And it's a cedar tree, and being in this area and living in several indigenous communities, like cedar is one of the sacred medicines, and it's for protection and grounding. And I just thought, oh, like I know the term dryad started with the oak tree, but it did expand, and I was like, this one has to be a cedar tree. And they're just, the way they grow, they're just intertwined, and I'm like, they're sisters. So that's how that one came to be. And again, just looking at like the Impressionist artists and like really just having a huge appreciation for the way they produce light effects. So a lot of it was just done where your eye is meant to, your brain just fills in the blanks. So the paint is there, but the image becomes in your head. So it's not just like so much a photograph, but it's more experiential. So like, you're seeing the light, but you're also feeling the wind, and you're smelling the forest, and you know what I mean? Like that one, like I hope that you like smell the rain, you know? So it's just the effect of it, so that you you have to engage with it, so that you do a part of the viewing, right? The viewing becomes an experience. It's not just the work, it's the act of viewing. So I'm almost done, guys.
I really like how the hair matches the bark.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so, and you know what? It was kind of one of those things, like when I was doing the hands, like I had to decide what level of finish I wanted to put on it, because in part, I almost didn't put the hands, because when I was working on it, that's one of the like later things to go in, and I was like, ooh, that's kind of cool, that it's like, they're like morphing. And I may play with that more as I develop the series, but it was something that I kind of like ho-hummed about. But like I said, this was one of the first three. I did them in I do them in clusters usually. So I wasn't sure how far I was going with that concept yet. So it can stand alone, like depending on how you want to view it and who decides to take it home with them, like it can kind of be their thing. But yeah, there was a little bit of like a back and forth there. And just with the hair and the bark and stuff like that, because these are oil paintings, they're done in layers. So I'll work on a piece for about a month. Sometimes it takes longer, because sometimes I'll actually revisit it later, or sometimes I'll need to like not look at it for a while. And then other times it's just like it needs to dry, and like if I go back and work on it, like I will ruin the last, 10-hour sitting. So it's like it's not worth it. So working in layers, you have a lot of time to think, what's my next move? Because it might be like 10 days between sittings, but all you're doing is thinking about the piece in those 10 days. So yeah, and then the other thing that's like experience, when do you stop? Because being a painter and not a photographer or a graphic artist or I don't know what other medium, but you have to know when to stop. And part of my piece is working large scale is I want them to be able to be viewed from a distance, but when you approach a piece, I want you to see different things. So if I lose all the brushwork and I lose things about the piece, it makes me sad. So I have to stop before I've lost some of the charm. So sometimes things, what people might say, oh, it's sloppy. But I don't know if they would say it's sloppy. I don't know what they would say. But it's very purposeful. Like me leaving marks that look unfinished to some people, there's very much an intention to that. It's not because I didn't have time to finish it. I made a conscious decision to stop at that point. So a lot of them, like if you were just to take a little close-up section of that, you go, I guess it's an abstract. Like, do you know what I mean? Like if you were just to look up close at just that, but if I were to produce that into a small card, you go, oh, that's a photograph. Like you might do that. You might flip back and forth. That's cool. Like to me, I'm like, that's where the value is. Because if you have something like that in your home, I want you to be able to look at it for years to come and have different experiences with it, and just based on where you are, see different things and feel different things. So yeah, knowing when to stop. Okay, and then there's these three. So I was talking to some of the folks who came at 11, and I was saying how working on square compositions is almost, it's not super popular, and you work on circles, so like that's even less popular, but you enter into different challenges as far as making the composition work. So because of the square-ish, they're not perfectly square, but a lot of the like principle of design that I was really focused on was balance. Because why not, right? It's, it's not going to break into, a nice rectangular shape. They're square. So in this one, it kind of, so her name's Ariel, and it's kind of because she had red hair, and I'm like, Little Mermaid. But it's also, this was before Little Mermaid. I made this a while ago. But it also, like, she was kind of like, she's up high. So there's actually a cave down here. And she had to actually like climb up and kind of perch on this edge of the cliff. And so you have this like deep dark, and then, the sky, and she's kind of like divided the canvas perfectly in half. So there's this, yin yang thing that's kind of happening, right? And it's all about balance. And if you ever watch a documentary about animals and you cry when the bunny gets eaten, right? Like it's all about balance, or like the rains don't come in time or whatever. And it's like super sad, but it's like, yeah, but that's just the way nature is. And you need that, you need the balance of both. And so in this one, the fox is kind of like just sort of blending almost into the Dryad itself. And it's just meant to represent like this sanctuary that these ecosystems, like that these spots in nature provide for wildlife, right? And for flora and fauna in general. And the fact like it's sitting kind of like right on her uterus, and it's just again the idea of the woman and nature and our role as women, right? And then this one again, so this one's actually set at night. So the palette is different because of that. So you're seeing moonlight, right? And she's sort of like, I'm not sure if I feel like she's just pulling her legs out of the water, kind of like that. But she's sort of in that in-between transition where she hasn't planted her feet back down yet, and she's just like balanced, really just like perfectly balanced on this little stone pedestal. And she's looking down into her reflection. So I don't know if she's looking at the stars reflecting in the water, or if she's looking through the water. Whatever she's doing, she's in a reflective state. So it's your time to rest and relax, but also to reflect on what's happened that day and regenerate and rejuvenate, right? So again, the stones, like these are all, like the stones kind of blend into her body as well, and just, yeah. I'm going to try to wrap it up because I've been going a long time, so I'll just talk about this one really quick, and then if you guys have questions. So this one's Grounded Thoughts, and it was one of the first ones I did. And there's just these really mossy areas behind where we live, but when we moved to Laxul, we called it like an enchanted forest. Like it's just where the moss gets so thick, you're like kind of like walking on pillows. It's just like weird, and it's like fantastical, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, these places exist. And again, with my pieces, I'm just trying to sort of bring awareness to the fact that there are these magical places, but also like how valuable they are, and that people should, yeah, just know they're there. So that was kind of a tricky thing again. Like I always try to challenge myself. Okay, how can I do raindrops, or how can I make moss look mossy, and how can I look, you know, make the leaves look like they're moving? Like it's always, there has to be something motivating, otherwise it's not worth me painting it, right? So there was this like really cool mossy area, the greens are just so fantastic. And then there was this tree that had fallen, and it was just the tree stump, and I thought, oh, it's so like compositionally it's so beautiful, but the tree dying is literally how we have the forest floor so lush. So it's this recycling of matter that produces these places, so untouched over generations. And then you realize how many generations have walked over this moss. Like how many stories are held within the forest itself. So here she's kind of like, partly she's like mourning the fallen tree, like her fallen sister, but it's not like, I don't find it sad at all. It's like very much just like a respect, a transfer of respect, like a respect for the generations of the past. And then I'm hoping that like a takeaway from that is, you know, to be respectful of the generations in the future. So, you know, we are the stewards of the land. We are, you know, the keepers of the water. We are the ones making decisions that are affecting our world. And again, to go back into like indigenous ways of teaching, you have to consider the 7 generations before you, but the 7 generations to come. And that's, people think like, you know, I'll make decisions with a week ahead in mind. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I shouldn't have spent that money because now I can't pay this bill. Never mind. No, my children, my children's children, my children's children's children, and so on. So, yeah, I'm super proud of that piece, and I think what it has to say, and I'm just like, I love that Amber picked it to do all the branding, and I just think it's a fantastic story if you want to like spend time to read into it and to kind of, you know, have a serious conversation with yourself in the piece. So
the fallen tree looks like a monument.
Almost like almost like a tombstone-ish kind of, yeah.
It's like she's saying thank you.
Yeah, well, and it's like the hand is not really touching, but it's like hovering, but it's like, you know, the energy, right? The energy transfer, and like, so it's like kind of, this one, the shape, it was almost like, do you see her body kind of mirrored?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's nice balance.
Yeah. So, but it's at the same time, this one has more grandeur. Like she's still looking up to it, but yeah, the tombstone is a really cool.
It's like her grandmother.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love the aged face.
Thank you.
Her face is aged, and I love it.
Awesome. So that's one of those things, Lynn. Remember when I said knowing when to stop? Because every layer I did of this, she looked different. And actually, Amber said that because Amber was in my studio while I was working on this, and she goes, "Oh, she looked like this last time." And now she, so it's like, when do you say, "No, I love her just the way she is"? Because you can look at it and be like, "Oh, well, that's not done." Like, you know what I mean? But to me, I was like, "No, that's where she stops." But yeah, it's, you have to make those decisions, and you know, she'll read differently and call on different things from different people depending on how I choose to leave her. So that's really cool. Well, and it's the wisdom of the years. So I love that, because again, this one too, it's like I'm putting the young body, but it doesn't mean they're young creatures. Like they live hundreds and hundreds of years.
But they can have young bodies.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Well, no, I like that, because by making them not humans but dryads, that was part of the intent, was that I wanted them to have lives that were grander than ours,
But
you know?
her body isn't young. Like you see the sinews in her arm and the age in her arms and under her breast.
Strength.
You know, so it just all goes together.
It's strength.
Well, and that's the thing from working with like models too, is there's so many different bodies, and that's why like working from life versus, like, you know, obviously all my landscapes and all the wildlife, like it's all like coming from photo references and experience, being there in person, and then taking that photo back to the studio and then working with that. But the human form is the same thing, and you know what the thing about the human form is, if I make a mistake on a fox's whisker, nobody will know. Nobody will say a peep. But if I do something that doesn't feel right with the human form, someone's going to be like, there's something, yeah. Or it, you know, whatever doesn't match or whatever.
Which is why you
That's
put
cool.
a fox there.
That's yeah. This one I had a hard time resolving this area on the figure, and the problem was the photo we had taken was a little bit like, it was in a sunspot, so it was almost a little bit like, I don't want to say overexposed because it wasn't the photo, but there was just, it was, I couldn't see what was going on, and I really struggled. And I told this story to a few people, but we were watching, what is it, Alex Ross?
Mm-hmm.
Alex Ross, who's a really good like comic book artist, and he works in gouache. And he was talking about one of the first lessons they learn is, if you don't know how to do something, hide it. So like they'll like hide a foot or whatever because they like can't draw feet. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. And I just thought, because her hair was red and all the fallen pine needles and everything like that were red, I thought, well, I'll just put the little fox. We actually have a fox around our area, and he's a blonde fox. So my dad got some really lovely pictures. It's like a rare color where it's like almost goldeny, but he's just so striking. And she had some pictures, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna put the little fox there and just kind of resolve that piece like that. So it kind of became its own, but that's an example of a piece that wasn't done for months and months and months and months and months, because I showed a professor, I was applying for a grant to do figure work specifically, and that was one of the ones that I sent her, and she goes, okay, but there's a problem with blank. She goes, there's something not right about blank. So I knew I had to hold on to it, and I knew that already. But you know, sometimes you just need someone else to be like, yeah, you're right, Jen, that one's a little bit, there's something there. So so that's how the fox ended up there. And then a friend of mine with 2 little ones came earlier in the week, and like, I think her daughter Jordan is like 5. She's 5. Yeah, Jamie's in school now, but Jordan and Jade came. And she said that this was her favorite one. And this has actually been several people's favorite one. So I was like, maybe it just meant to not work, so that I put the fox in there. Yeah, happy little accident, right?
This one here on the wrong, it's like she's looking at a reflection saying it was a good day.
Yeah, I feel like there's almost like a little bit of a, like it's like a, yeah. Whereas this one, the expression, like, to me is almost like uneasy. Like there's like something's going on. Like I need to know what are you saying to me? Because and then these ones, their expression, it's like a.
Oh, you caught me kind of.
I almost think it's like a, are you sure you want to come over here? Like, Like it's like like do I need to go in there or are they gonna bite my head off? So I kind of thought that, you know, they say a lot in their expression, right? And it's, you know, you have to earn the respect of the forest before you enter the forest. Like you can get lost in a forest, right? You know? So you have to respect it, right? It's same thing with water. Like you go on the water, you better know what you're doing, you know, because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, you're nothing. You go on the water, you don't know where you're going, good luck, right? So, yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I was just wondering, do you have prints of these?
So what I'm doing, I do have like a couple, but what I do, because the sizes are not, like I make my own stretchers. So aside from a few of them, they're like kind of unconventional sizes, so they actually require specific framing. So the best thing to do to get a print would be, like you would order from me, so you could do that on my website or whatever. But either have a frame in mind, and I'll tell you if it can crop into it or not, or you have to actually take it to a framer. So any framer, like the mats on those ones, they're all from the gallery, like they're gallery mats, but that means that they'll need custom frames to go with them. So yeah, I don't have prints, but the prints can be made. But it's very much so you want to give me dimensions specifically for the space, and then the color of the mat if you're getting a mat, and then the color of the frame.
Communicate that on your website?
Yeah, but it's a bit of a back and forth, so it's not like unless it's something you see here that's already like on display to sell, it's a bit of a conversation because, you know, you can even print on canvas, but I mean, I'm not going to, like, I don't have prints of all of them. I would just make it to order. And then if I have a show, then I'd like make prints specifically for that. But yeah, so I do have one print of the grounded thoughts in a small frame nomad. So that one's available. And then the Mother of Rain that we're doing the draw from. But that's it from this series. So any other prints from this series would have to be ordered. So yeah. So I'm gonna put that back. You guys, there's cupcakes. Should I do it right now? Sure. Yeah, you guys want to put your name in. I'll give you guys a minute to do